Martina Ilarion has recently received a doctoral degree from the University of Nicosia. Her research addressed the issue of international education in Cyprus, specifically the concept of international mindedness. This study came as a result of her own experiences. She spent 8 years teaching history at IGCSE and A-level in international schools. Her professional pathway made her look further into the aspects of international schooling, especially the one that has to do with the diversity and global outlook of students in international schools. I'll hand you over now to Martina for her presentation. Over to you, Martina.
Thank you. Good morning. For me, good morning. For you, I do not know where you are right now. But thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me to show you my my research. So, as John said, I did research for my PhD, international mindedness in international schools in Cyprus. And international schools are basically schools with a global outlook located mainly outside of an English-speaking country, and they deliver a non-national curriculum, at least partly in English. But most of them are working fully in English. And what do they have in common? Usually they consist of a multinational community of teachers and students that vary in terms of their cultural and linguistic backgrounds and national backgrounds. They follow international curricula such as IGCSE or IB, and having the ability to give, or AP, having the ability to give such qualifications gives them international credibility, and then allow students to access internationally tertiary education. But the idea also is that a true international school should deliver international mindedness. And what is international mindedness? To familiarize it, it's very close to the concept of global citizenship education or intercultural education, but I find it to be more comprehensive, and it's directed at international schools. So an internationally minded individual should possess knowledge about global issues and cultural diversities, have critical thinking skills, be culturally literate, and be able to reach beyond the limits of one's national or cultural affiliation and approach others with openness and curiosity. And international mindedness is built on knowledge, understanding, and skills within 3 pillars of global engagement, intercultural understanding, and multilingualism. So this is what I was predominantly researching, but it was a mixed method study with open-ended questions that included open-ended questions. And what happened is that a lot of the answers actually referred to the English language, which is the language of instruction in these schools. So then I started looking more into a theoretical framework of the English language and discovered that, well, although we consider now English to be a world language, that there is more non-native speakers than the native speakers, and more than 80% of communication in English takes place between non-native speakers of English. Moreover, the academia has all of those concepts of English as lingua franca, English as a world language, English as global language. The native speaker idealization still is prevalent. Students still are asked to try to reach the norms of a non-native speaker, and the books and instructional materials are mainly issued by British and American institutions. And even if those textbooks, those materials do include cultural agenda that is more intercultural, they are still given from the perspective of those Western institutions. But to be fair, the international school research shows that majority of parents do send their children to these schools for them to learn English. And the recent research even shows that when we are talking about that, it's not only the knowledge of the language, it's also the way of thinking, it's the behavior, making this Englishness as a currency of power. So let me show you some of the results I got, and I will show you some results I got from the teachers and students. So in my study, it showed that the lower the English language skills, the lower the students' grades. And actually, that does not mean only lower grade in English. That means lower grades in history, science, geography. So it has a huge academic effect on the students. And the other problem is the negative social effects. The lower the students' English skills in international schools, the smaller their social circle. They tend to, students with low language skills tend to group with other people who speak their native language. And that will, of course, limit their exposure to intercultural understanding. And one more thing, teachers notice that students make fun of each other's accents, even if it's a student accent, but I will come back to it in just a second. Teachers, though, did work very hard for students to acquire the language. So teachers frequently discuss adjusting vocabulary, adapting the material, such as textbook, videos, to make sure that students are learning the language and the material are adapted to students' literacy levels. But still, to the open-ended question, what is the biggest challenge of teaching multinational group of students? Many teachers gave answer as the one we can see below. So the challenge is to adapt the material so that all children are comfortable with it. Students can think or write in the first language. It takes time to help them to adjust to the English language, either grammatically or expression-wise. And here we see that we are very much striving for this native speaker ideal. And what I would like to show you now are the student results. Most of the students said that, just a second, let me move the camera. Or minimize. Most of the students said, 63% said that upon joining the school, they knew the language well enough to feel comfortable in the lessons. 22% needed up to 6 months. So they were acquiring the language relatively fast. 70% did not recognize learning as a difficulty. And then majority of students did speak English during breaks and also did use English as a secondary language at home. So we can see students are pretty communicative in the English language. However, yet again, 41% noticed that if they knew the language better, if the quality, the proficiency of their language was better, they could then get better grades in subjects other than English. So that would conclude the results that were directed at multilingualism in the school. But then the other part of my questionnaire did deal with intercultural understanding as a part of international mindedness. And what has happened, I've asked an open-ended question about what makes you feel disrespected in your school. And students could choose whatever they felt. Yet 17% of students actually said that they were bullied because of the accent they were speaking. And many of the answers actually referred to the teachers, got corrected slightly harshly, by a teacher for saying a phrase with a different accent. Teachers of English nationality would purposefully use harder, more complicated words to make me feel stupid. When I was younger and new to English, teachers made very little effort to try to understand what I was saying. So there is a relation of language skills to other difficulties students are facing in the school. Not only academic, but difficulties such as making friends, feeling isolated, feeling stupid, being made fun of, and sense of feeling respected and disrespected in the school. Moreover, you look at it, although some teachers commented on students making fun of their peers' accents, they did not see this issue as something that can have further socio-psychological effects or consequences for the learner. However, for many students, this was actually quite a sensitive topic, and they found it as a form of bullying. Some teachers dislike my accent. When I was younger, some people made fun of my accent. Sometimes I feel that my teachers are not choosing me to read because of my accent. So it's a little bit paradoxical that in a school where we have a multinational environment, where we're supposed to adhere to international education, where and strive for these goals, accent is an issue, and people are feeling bullied because of the way they speak the English language, despite the fact that they are communicative. So this consequently shows the importance of developing teacher sensitivity to this issue, as in several cases, they were the ones who students blame for their experience. And I want to show one more result. Students and teachers were asked how they would conceptualize their school's identity, whether it's international or English. And while 87% of teachers, who were mostly coming from Anglophone countries, found their school to be international based on the multinational population of the school, students actually, 60% of them, did look at the curriculum, did look at the composition of staff in the school, and did look at the management of the school, and they actually found the school to be English rather than international. How we comment in international schools is to move away from teaching English as a foreign language towards teaching English as lingua franca. This could help us to overcome the stigma of westernization and post-colonial cultural imperialism, and to move away from the native speaker idea. In international schools, actually, or other international communities, English as lingua franca could be incorporated into the scope of multilingualism as a part of international mindedness, and thus teach students tolerance and towards the ways other people speak, and to embrace their own and others' different way of using the language, not only in terms of accent, but also in terms of code mixing, code switching, and seeing their bilingualism or as a advantage rather than seeing it from a deficit perspective where they are unable to reach these native speaker ideals. But I also believe that English as lingua franca should incorporate ideas of international mindedness, such as global engagement and intercultural understanding. So it could include teaching about global issues, understanding through critical engagement, so such as understanding influence of power and privilege. For example, power and privilege of Western dominance or imperialism. So all of those things can be discussed also in terms of how the English language became a world language and what it is today. It should also include teaching about intercultural understanding, so open-mindedness and positive disposition to ideas of people of other cultures. So that will, in turn, would make students more tolerant of how other people speak and why they speak the way they speak. For example, research shows that people from Asian communities using English, they would often use plural while talking to people of higher authority or to elderly. Now, if we would approach it from the perspective of intercultural understanding, we would not also appreciate it, but also understand why such things are happening rather than seeing it as a mistake. So in conclusion, I believe we should be more open to the variety of English and to what bilingual students and multinational students bring to international schools. And as in international schools, I believe we should move away from teaching English as a second language and move more towards English as lingua franca. I also believe that English as lingua franca could take advantage of using a little bit of ideas of international mindedness and international school. Actually, the two can work together, and ELF became as effective to international mindedness as international mindedness to English as lingua franca. Right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martina. We've got some time left at the end. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask Martina? You can either use the chat box or use the audio if you want. I've got a question here, Martina, from Pierre. He asks, in the context of multilingual classes, especially when students have varying levels of English proficiency, do teachers see any impact of using English as a medium to simplification of academic content?
Could you please repeat the last part?
Sure, yeah. I'll repeat all of it. In the context of multilingual classes, especially when students have varying levels of English proficiency, do teachers see any impact of using English as a medium to simplification of academic content?
Well, I would say so, because if you look at this slide, here it is, 79% of them is doing that, and they understand that they have to simplify their vocabulary, not only when they are speaking with students, but also when they are speaking with parents. And so it might be that a student quite often is communicative in English, but their parents quite often are not. And that creates problems, especially in parents' evenings in these situations. Yet you have to find a way to communicate. And I would say also that many of teachers understand that they have to differentiate, and I'd say that they are pretty successful in it. If we can see that my results show, like, where school leaders and teachers, they were very much insisting in their answers on students learning the language of instruction and seeing it as very problematic, and at the same time and challenging At the same time, students did not see it this way. Many of them felt that they learned the language very fast, that they did not need any additional support, and so on. So we see that what teachers are doing is actually working, and students are learning without really feeling that this learning actually is quite it's not a daunting experience for them. Yet they understand that, well, it's okay, my English is communicative, but if I want to reach A star in history, let's say, I have to be much better.
Thank you for the question, Pierre.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. I was really struck by the difference of perceptions in terms of how students and teachers are looking at the school environment and the effectiveness of the environment. I think you had that last slide there. Have you presented this to the teachers? How did they respond to this? And why do you think there's such a dichotomy here?
Each school that I did research in 6 international schools in Cyprus. So the study, it over 200 students took part in the study and over 70 teachers took part in the study. So each school at the end got a report on their statistical results. So obviously they had to be well, for privacy reasons and for ethical reasons, obviously I had to be careful how I present those results back to the schools. But the difference is how it comes about. Well, teachers are mostly coming from Anglophone countries. They mostly previously did teach in England or Australia or wherever they're, but from that cultural sphere. And they were mostly teaching the national curriculum in their countries. And then they moved to international schools abroad, so whether it's in Cyprus, but I believe the same situation will be in Dubai or Singapore or wherever. And they are teaching now not GCSE, but international GCSE, not A-level, but international A-level. And the students are coming in are multinational. So we can see how they are seeing this school as being international, as being different to what they were in a sense used to before. While students, many students would consider their schools to be English. Why? Because as we have this group of teachers and management actually trying to put the same norms as they would do, for example, back in England, students do pick up on it. So they see that the curriculum they are learning is mostly based on the English curriculum. So yes, it is an international curriculum, but it's very much internationalized British curriculum. This is how I would have actually be more specific naming it. All the teachers are English. The management is English. So they do see their school culture in the end to be English, not an international culture.
Yeah, I have a million questions about this, but I can't help but notice parallels to academia in general. And I work with adult students, and usually I find their work, of course, can be very fascinating and very complex, but they're quite limited by their English ability as well, in terms of their access to academia and being able to participate in conferences such as this one. So do you think there can be some relationship between these problems, and maybe do you have any, I know you already gave some suggestions, but what are your ideas for how we can overcome this?
I think it has to come from the teachers. I think it has to, especially in schools, because yes, you are working already with students that are older, that are more developed, that they have a better idea of their self identity. Here we are talking about children between 12 and 18. And the problem is that, well, they don't feel good enough. because of the way they speak. Despite the fact that they are being communicative, they have to adapt themselves to be a certain way. So I think it has to, and to be honest, that's why I'm here. That's why I wanted to show these results to people who are teaching English, to see what is happening if they are not paying attention to, because look, English as lingua franca is very much, from what I've noticed, there is a lot of articles about it in the academia. So it's very well researched, we have a lot of ideas. Yet it does not translate into practice of what we do in schools. It does not translate into what, and if it will not translate to what we do in schools, then the students and parents, and whether you're an adult learner of English or whether you are a young learner of English, you will still try to think, well, I'm not good enough because I'm not speaking in a certain way. It does not matter how good is my grammar, how good is my vocabulary, how intelligent I am. So I think it has to change, especially at the level of teachers. It has to change in practice, because if teachers will start accepting English as lingua franca, then it will directly affect the students, how students are thinking about themselves, and it will directly affect how parents are thinking also, because it's very important how parents are thinking about their children's communicative skills.
Hmm. I want to give other people a chance to ask questions before I keep going.
Caroline, there are no other questions in the chat box, and we do have time. We're sort of running ahead of schedule. I don't know how, but please feel free to ask another question or questions if you like. We do
everybody
have
else,
time.
feel free to hop in, please. I'm happy to be interrupted.
Yeah. If any other questions come in the chat box, I'll let Martina and yourself know, but at the moment, nobody's posted another question, so feel free, Caroline.
Great. So Martina, just so that you know where I'm coming from, like I'm here in the conference kind of by accident. I'm coming from the perspective of an NGO here in Singapore that is doing volunteer English teaching for migrant workers. And it all happened very suddenly during the pandemic. So these are the talks that are more my speed and more to my interest. So again, looking at this, you mentioned that this problem can be solved perhaps through the teachers themselves, and looking at the stat you have here, I'm wondering if there are maybe correlations between how long teachers have lived in different countries, or maybe the variety of countries that they've lived in, if they come from international backgrounds themselves, if these things help or if they don't really help.
Look, I did not do the research on it myself, but I've read some research that would discuss this issue. So the problem is that there is no training to be an international school teacher. So the teachers quite often have to learn on the job. But the other thing is that, well, this is not really very much discussed, because if we will look at school leaders of international schools, white male from Western universities from an Anglophone countries are still being preferred. There is a research by Garrett Mattart, I cannot pronounce this name, but anyhow, his research does show that, well, no matter how many years school leaders are there abroad as principals, they never learn the local language, or they don't feel the need of learning the local language. So, so it starts from the top, but then also, if we look here, research shows that actually parents want that. Parents consider Englishness as an advantage. So in a sense, if international schools are private schools, and this is what parents are paying fees for, why do we need to change?
Right.
We are providing our customer with what they want, in a sense, isn't it? So, but I think that what has to be taken more into considerations is how are the children feeling in all of that? And is this really a way? And, you know, we are moving away from it slowly, but I think more time is needed.
Mm. Yeah, I think especially as adults, we know that the paradigm of an international context is something great, but we're unwilling to see when we're not really in that paradigm. We think that we're in international context. I personally have experienced this myself and have been guilty of this myself, where I think I'm in a very international context and then something happens and I realize that, well, really I was very much in a bubble, and I still am very much in a bubble. And I'm trying to find a set of questions that I can ask myself repeatedly to make sure that I'm challenging that. And especially for the benefit of my students, or in my case, I'm serving as a teacher mentor to all of our volunteer teachers who are locals and who are often non-white, not necessarily native speakers of English, and certainly not the native speaker norm of American or British accented speakers. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't force that on any of the people that I'm working with. So any suggestions about how I can monitor myself in that way?
There is a paper, the name is Siafis 2014. I will try to post it. If I just stop sharing my screen, I will try to find it. How do I do that? How do I stop sharing?
I'll just go down to the green button down below and just, or up at the top, you can just
stop share. Yes,
options,
I see it. Okay,
sharing.
yeah. So I will try to find it. And this man, because again, English is not my specialization, because I started reading about it while I received the results. So you see, I didn't set up to research the role of the English language in international schools. I went there to research international mindedness. And what has happened is, well, English just made itself very, 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 very visible. But let me just find it. What was his name?
I have seen I did see one book that was talking about essentially decolonizing English teaching, and some small papers about things like this that I've tried to keep on my radar, but this is the first time I've seen it talk about it, which is great.
I just wanted to show what is happening if we don't do it, because
Absolutely.
you know, a lot of talk about why should we do it and that it's good and so on, but I think my research is showing what's happening if we just don't. Now this is okay, so this is the name of the person, and what he has is a set of questions a teacher should ask themselves or reflect on when teaching English as a foreign language to be more culturally appropriate. I don't have a title right now. I would have to dig more for the title. I just have the name of the author and the year of the publication. So if you will find him under this year, probably you will find a paper where and it's a whole list of what teachers could ask themselves to be more reflective while teaching the English language.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm seeing a paper here that looks promising. And you mentioned the other paper you mentioned. If you remember the name, could you share that one as well?
Whichever.
I'm not going to remember now. The name began with a G.
Oh. Just a second. I will give you this bibliography.
You can share the screen again if you want, Martina, to show Caroline
My screen is a little bit messy right now,
okay.
so I'd rather not.
Okay.
I'd rather not.
No problem.
It's okay.
Let me just go down to the background.
Yeah, I see this problem as prevalent. I mean, from the bottom to the top, when you're talking about some basic English centers, and it's this cyclical issue where the parents are looking for that American accented white young woman, aka me, to teach their kids. And then that means the centers are hiring people who are not experienced. They don't know what they're doing, but they don't care because that's what they're making money with. And then these people get pushed forward in the sphere. And then they become the ones who are running schools. They move into the international schools. They go to conferences like this one. These are, I see.
Here all the articles of this.
Thank you very much. I have a lot of work to do.
No worries. I'm trying to find, I don't know if I will find him. No. 2014.
So what brought you into this area of research? How did you end up here?
Because it happens that I speak funny, and it happened that I'm an international school teacher in history. So, so I started noticing those things, isn't it? Because, well, students felt, well, I'm more of their kind, in a sense, that I'm going through similar things they are going through while using the language. So, so slowly I started looking at those cultural issues in international schools, and yes, turned it into a PhD. So so I wanted to research, and I thought it's a good idea. So yes, this is exactly how I ended up here. And then the results shown that, well, English has a major role in international mindedness in international schools. So so yes, this is how I found this conference, and I said, okay, I need an audience that will listen to that, for whom this will be important. So thank you for being here, because you see, at least it's important for you. So it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you for being here too. I'm happy to be learning from you.
Yeah, thanks very much for your contribution, Martin, and thanks also, Caroline, for all the extra questions. We've come to the end of the time now. I mean, if Caroline and Martin, you want to continue talking, I can leave this open. So if I don't know if you want to exchange, swap emails or anything, but I can leave this open if you want to continue talking. But the time is up. But like I said, I'll leave this open. This room has finished, but the conference itself continues. I mean, in the plenaries and panel discussions webinar room at 4:40, there's a talk by Professor Guoxing Yu about the integrated language assessment in a digital age. That goes on for 45 minutes, and then at 5:35 there's the second panel discussion. So both of those will be taking place in the plenaries and panel discussion webinar room. But like I say, I'll leave this open. So if you want to continue chatting, talking to each other, that's perfectly fine. So thanks everyone for coming along. It's been really nice to listen to all the presentations today, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay. Caroline, thank you for everything. I'm trying to find this paper for you from Symphonies, because this one is the good one. So I'm somewhere. So if you will wait for a second, I will be able.
I'm very happy to. You're really inspiring me. I've been on a bit of a personal journey trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my career, and I've been thinking about going back for a further degree, and I have not found the subject area that I'm interested in, and this is the first time I've come across some research that is really inspiring. So
thank you.